Good morning, guys, or good afternoon, whether you're joining me from the present or the future. Welcome back to another one of my FutureFight Vanguard series. Now, I know I've been gone for a while, guys. I've actually been handling a couple things regarding the channel and some personal life things on the side, but I am back now, and we are still catching up on G-BT11 things. I was also doing the interviews for the top 8 of the Atlanta regionals, so make sure you guys, I made a vlog of it, so make sure you guys go check out that vlog. A lot of people were like, what happened to you? And like, I couldn't really explain to them like in a quick fashion, I guess. So it should be in the blog, or the vlog, I should say. And also go check out the other deck interviews of the top 8, because there were some pretty interesting tops and some pretty good people that made the tops. But without further ado, today we're going to be talking about the Chronojet Zodiac Time Beast deck from Generation Booster 11, or G Booster 11, however you would prefer to call it. And with that being said, let's go ahead and start getting into the deck. I'm flipping the G units as usual. Alright. So, we're going to talk about the grade 3s first, as usual. So we run 3 different grade 3s in here, but a total of 7 grade 3s in this deck. We run 4 Chronojet Dragon G. He is our main Vanguard that you want to be on in this deck. He is a Zodiac Time Beast, as well as having your Chronojet Vanguard name that you want for most of your card effects. And his 2 abilities are, one, it has a continuous Vanguard ability. This says during your turn, this unit, for every 2 cards face up in your G zone, this unit gets plus 5,000 power, and all your Zodiac Time Beast rear guards get 1,000 power. So that does stack for your rear guards as well, so it makes your rear guards really big once you start dipping into your G zone a little more and you start unflipping more and more cards in your G zone. It becomes a really big beater itself, and it makes your rear guards into pretty decent beaters as well. Then we have its Time Leap ability, which is the stride skill. During your turn, when you stride a Gear Dragon or a Zodiac Time Beast stride, then you can choose up to 1 card from your hand, call it to rear guard, and then you can choose one of your rear guards and Time Leap it. Time Leap is the mechanic for Gear Chronicle, basically meaning that you choose a unit that is on your board, and you're able to Time Leap it, meaning that you're able to move that unit to the bind zone and call out a card that is 1 grade higher than that card. So you can't Time Leap grade 3s, basically. And so you can Time Leap to a unit that is from your deck that's 1 grade higher than the card that you bound, and then at the end of the turn, that card that you got out goes back to the bottom of the deck, and then you get the card back from your bind zone, the exact card that you used to Time Leap. And if you, for some reason, your grade 2 disappears, or sorry, let's just assume that you Time Leap a grade 1 to a grade 2. If for some reason your grade 2 disappears from the board, your grade 1 does not come back from the drop zone. However, if your unit in the bind zone goes somewhere or something happens to it, then the unit from the field still goes back to the deck. So it's kind of a complicated ruling for those who don't know it. But yeah, that's Chrono Dragon G. Then we run 2 Pulsar Replenish Kotal. Replenish Kotal actually came out in this set. It's one of the new cards from the Generation Booster 11 set. It has a really good skill. It helps you manage your counterblast fairly efficiently. And its skill is Generation Break 1 when this unit is placed on the rear guard from your deck, aka probably by Time Leap. If you have a Zodiac Time Beast Vanguard, then this unit gets plus 3,000 power. And then if you have no face-up cards in your damage zone, then you get to countercharge 1. I actually didn't realize that this card was like when placed from deck. So I might have played it to rear guard a couple times in the playtest and just unflipped, but I guess we'll see. I don't remember if I remembered that or not, because I made the recordings like quite a while back. So then we have 1 Lone Wolf card, which is 1 Chronofang Tiger G. In the Zodiac Time Beast deck and Gear Chronicle in general, you can usually get away with a lot of 1-ofs in the deck because you're able to get to them via Time Leap. So it's not a big deal that you're running only 1-of, because people are like, oh, well, you know, what if you damage it? What if you never see it? And if you damage it, you know, you have heals and stuff like that, and you have recycle cards, so you're able to send it back to the deck. It's not gone forever when it hits the damage zone. And as far as like, what if you never get it? You will get it if you want it, because you can Time Leap into it, basically. That's the simple answer. So what Chronofang Tiger G does is it has a Generation Break 1 ability that's on Vanguard or Rearguard Circle, even though you never want to ride this card, so hopefully it's not on your Vanguard. At the end of the battle that this unit attacked a Vanguard, you can Soul Blast 1 and choose another Rearguard and bind it. And then if you do, you get to choose one of your opponent's Rearguards in the same column as Chronofang Tiger G, and then your opponent puts that unit to the bottom of their deck. So it's a good control option if you need to get some key units off of your opponent's board that don't have resist. It is a key removal key tool thing for you guys to use to get rid of some of your opponent's units. Then stepping into the grade 2s, we have 11 grade 2s. We run 4 Pulsar Cruising Dragon. This is another one of our new cards from G-BT11. It has a Generation Break skill as well on the Rearguard Circle only, that says during your turn, if you have a Vanguard with Chronojet in its name, this unit gets 2,000 power and a skill. The skill that it gains is when this unit attacks a Vanguard, you can counterblast 1, look at the top 3 cards of your deck, reveal 1 Zodiac Time Beast, put it into your hand, and put the rest on the bottom. So this card helps you with that early advantage, really gets your engine going, because you're able to just plus so much off of doing this so much, and countercharge is not really a problem in this deck because of some cards I will get to later. So you're not really worried about countercharging and using a bunch of counterblasts, so pretty much just a bunch of pluses. It's a really good card. Then we have 4 Pulsar Tamer Manish. This card also came out in G-BT11, I believe. It is our Zodiac Time Beast go-to resist unit in case we're playing against a control deck like Narukami or Kagero. So it has 2 abilities. Its first one is continuous on the guard circle or rearguard circle, which is actually very important because it means that if you're playing against like Deep Police or something that blows your guardians off the guard circle, they cannot blow Manishes off of the guard circle because it will have resist. So if we have a Zodiac Time Beast Vanguard, which should be always, this unit gets continuous resist on the guard circle and the rear guard circle. And then its Generation Break 1 ability is when this unit attacks, you can have this card gain 2,000 power for each of your other Zodiac Time Beast units on the field until the end of the battle. And then if you do, at the end of the battle, you bind the unit, or you bind this card face up into the bind zone, and you don't really get it back unless you go into like Huang Long or something, but we'll talk about that later. So then we have 3 Pulsar Tamer Lugo-Er. So what Lugo-Er does is, this is one of our earlier cards that we actually got from like G-BT09, I believe. So this unit has 2 abilities as well. The first one is when this unit attacks, if you have a Zodiac Time Beast Vanguard, this unit gets plus 2,000 power. And then the second ability is Generation Break 1. When your drive check reveals a grade 3 Zodiac Time Beast, you can time leap Lugo-Er into a grade 3, so by Soul Blasting 1. So it's pretty much a good card because it gets around the fact that we don't run like any stand triggers really. We run 1 stand trigger, but it's not because of the fact of it being a stand. So we basically don't run stand triggers in this build. So it really helps with multi-attacks because you're able to just attack with Lugo-Er, then attack with Vanguard, and if you check a grade 3, it turns your grade 3 into a trigger that allows you to time leap trigger, so to speak. So pretty good card. Then we have 4 of the new Pulsar Revolver Draco Kid. This is basically our new Stride Fodder for the deck. It is a Stride Fodder that is purely for Zodiac Time Beast, so very, very good card. Then we have 4 Steam Tamer Arca. So what Arca does is it is our Zodiac Time Beast PG, actually. It actually came out of the character booster set like way back when, but people weren't really running it until now. because, you know, Arca's just better now that we have more Zodiac Time Beast cards and we're running a Zodiac Time Beast build of the deck. Zodiac Time Beast has kind of overtaken Time Leap in terms of popularity and strength. So a lot of people have just switched over to running a bunch of the Zodiac Time Beast cards. So it is a Zodiac Time Beast PG. It does require that you discard a Zodiac Time Beast, which can be kind of bad when you only have like the few cards in your hand in this deck that we run that are not Zodiac Time Beasts. Ultimately, it should be fine though. I don't see a big issue with it. And then its Generation Break 2 skill from the drop zone is kind of like Ezra's from Shadow Paladin, where if you have 2 Arcas in the drop zone, you can choose an Arca and a Zodiac Time Beast trigger unit from your drop zone and bind them, and then you return this card to your hand. So Arca basically makes you lose a trigger unit from your drop zone forever, which can be fine in certain scenarios because you're getting a PG back to your hand, but you're also losing an Arca unless you're, again, using Huanglong. So it's pretty hard to get cards out of the bind zone in this deck, so it's kind of up to you, like up to user discretion if you want to use it or not, or if you want to use the unflip PG. I think that either or is pretty good. Then we have 4 Pulsar Transit Dragon. So what Transit Dragon does is it's basically a Jeffrey from Gold Paladin. They gave it to Gear Chronicle for whatever reason. For those of you who know what Jeffrey is, you know what I'm talking about. For those of you who don't, the skill of Transit Dragon is at the end of the battle that this unit boosted. If you have a grade 4 Vanguard with Chronojet in its name, you can shove this card into the soul and draw a card. Simple as that. End of the battle that it was a part of, you just shove it into the soul, draw a card. So pretty good when you're able to just like play 3 of them to the field, build your soul, build your hand, and also get boosters for your attacks, making them have served their purpose for at least a turn, and then they just shove into the soul. So very, very good card. Now, tech card that I like to run in this deck is we run 2 Steam Maiden Kulu Racina. So this deck, when I first tried it out, had like big problems countercharging. So this is kind of like our countercharge engine, especially since we don't run the unflip PGs. If I did run the unflip PGs, I probably would not run this card. But this card kind of works like Dark Cat or the Bermuda card that I can't really think of at the moment. But Dark Cat basically was a card that when you played it to the board, it was a 7k grade 1, and it allowed all players to draw a card if they chose to. So usually your opponent would be pretty greedy and just, you know, take the draw. And Kulu Racina works the same way, except instead of drawing, it just says when this card's played, each player may return a card from their drop zone to their deck, and then if both players return a card, we get to countercharge. So you kind of play it like to bait your opponent. Worst case scenario, you're putting back a trigger from your drop zone to your deck, and your opponent will also want to put back like a trigger or an important card from their deck into their deck. And then if they do, you get to countercharge 1. So it's all about like your... Yeah, it does have like some interaction with your opponent. Your opponent can choose not to do it, but at the same time, like if your opponent chooses not to do it, you just got to put back a trigger for free, basically with no remorse. So I think it's a good card either way, especially because you can get to it via Time Leap in this deck, which can make it very, very good. Then we have 1 Steam Sniper Rishima. So what Rishima does is at the end of the battle that it boosted a Vanguard, you can Soul Blast 1 and discard a card from your hand. And if you do, you can Time Leap this unit. And then when this unit is placed on rear guard from your bind zone, basically coming back from Time Leap at the very end phase, you can Counter Blast 1 and draw a card. So Rishima refunds itself by drawing you the extra card, but it also gets you an extra attack, which is pretty cool. In some scenarios, like let's say you have a Cruising Dragon on one side and a Manish on the other side, you can attack with Manish first, and then give it the power and have it remove itself from the board via its own skill. And then what you do is attack with your Vanguard, and then after that use Rishima to call another grade 2 to the other side, and then you have more attacks, and you're also not wasting that circle like calling over units or anything like that. So, and then at the end of the turn, your grade 2 will go back to the deck, and then this will come back and draw you a card for the cost of Counter Boss 1. So, pretty solid card. Then we have a Chronodran for our starter. It has Forerunner like most starters, where it moves itself back when you ride. And then it has a Generation Break 1 ability that says put this unit into the soul when it's put into the bind zone from rearguard circle, basically Time Leap. And search your deck for one Chronojet Dragon and call it to rearguard, and then you shuffle your deck, and at the end of the turn, the Chronojet called with this effect returns to your hand. So basically, on your first turn, you're able to time leap this unit into a grade 1, be that Rishima or Kula Racina or Transit Dragon, whatever you like. You can time leap into a grade 1, and then you can also use Chronodran to just shove it into Soul, and then get a Chronojet G that you're going to bounce to your hand for Stride Fighter for the following turn. So very good term in terms of a plus. Then we have 4 Throbbing Worker, or Heart Thump Worker in English. This is our Chronojet crit that shoves itself to the soul when a Chronojet Vanguard attacks, and then you draw a card, and again, your Vanguard gains plus 5,000. Then we have 4 Pulsar Slash Dog. This is one of our Zodiac Time Beast crit triggers, one that came out in G-BT11 to be exact. It's very important to run Zodiac Time Beast cards in whatever spaces you can deem that are not important, because this whole deck revolves around Zodiac Time Beast, and you pretty much have to have a Zodiac Time Beast card for every purpose. So that's why we run the Zodiac Time Beast crit triggers. Then we have 1 Urwater. It is on the ban list limited to 1, or we would run more. And this card is just so good. I think that every Gear Chronicle deck should just run it. It's just very, very good card. So when this unit is placed into the bind zone from rearguard, you can put it to the bottom of the deck, draw 2 cards, choose a card from your hand, and return it to your deck and shuffle. So basically what this allows you to do is just filter out your hand. It makes drawing triggers like not a dead draw if you draw this, because you're able to just stride and use Chronojet G skill to get a grade 1 out of it, but then you're also putting this card back to your deck, so it's very, very good, and you're also getting an extra card off of it. So, very good card. Like, kind of, I just say that every deck that's Gear Chronicle should put it at least, or sorry, they can only put it one of, but I think that they should at least run the one that you're allowed to run. Then we have 3 Fickle Monkey. Fickle Monkey is one of our draw triggers that just came out in G-BT11. It is a Zodiac Time Beast draw trigger. I'm laughing because the Zodiac Time Beast triggers are all like little kind of adorable animal type things, which kind of fits because Zodiac Time Beast is following the 12 Zodiac signs, so it does fit that it's like a monkey and the goat and all this stuff. They kind of lost that theme when they started making more Zodiac Time Beasts, but I guess it's whatever. So we run 3 draw triggers that are Zodiac Time Beasts and 4 heals that are Zodiac Time Beasts. The new heal, Pulsar Tamer Anim. Oh god, I'm so sorry guys. Alright, so moving on to the G Zone, we have 1 Meta Pulsar Mystery Freeze Dragon. This is one of our newer cards that came out of G-BT11 as well. It is a card that Chrono uses quite often, so if you've watched the anime, you've probably seen it before. It has a Generation Break 3 ability, Axe skill, which means that you must activate this in the main phase. So you counterblast 2 during the main phase, you shuffle your deck, and then you bind the top 4 cards of your deck face up, and then until the end of the turn, your opponent cannot guard with cards from their hand that have the same grades as the grades that you bound. So let's say that you use this skill and you bind a 0, a 1, a 2, and a 3. Your opponent can't guard with any 1s, 2s, 0s, or 3s from their hand, which is really, really useful because it makes it that this card is only like able to be guarded by a G Guardian. So if they don't have a G Guardian, they just lose because they have to take the attack, assuming that they're at 5 damage. Also, if you bind a grade 3 with this effect, then this unit gets +1 drive, so it can get quad drive. So Ganslot status, boys. Then we run 4 Meta Pulsar Avenir Phoenix. So what Avenir Phoenix does is it's kind of our new Phoenix to call cards out. Every Phoenix, like Stride, I think in Gear Chronicle, calls something out. So basically it's a Zodiac Time Beast Stride that says when this unit attacks, you can counterblast 1 and flip a Phoenix from your G-Zone face-up. If you do, you get to reveal the top 5 cards of your deck, and then for each face-up card in your G-Zone, call 2 Zodiac Time Beasts to separate rearguard from among them, and then put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. So you're able to call out cards that are not triggers and put triggers back to your deck. And then also the continuous Generation Break 3 ability is all your Zodiac Time Beasts rearguards get +2000 power. So if you're at least GB2 when you're going into this, like you're getting the full effect out of it. Then we run 1 GB8 Interdimensional Dragon Beyond Order Dragon. This card can be useful at times. Since we have a good amount of recycle, it's not really like gonna deck us out anymore. So we do run it, and it can be a very powerful card as well. Like it's just a straight +5 when you do use it. In my opinion, you're just losing a lot of cards from your deck when you're doing it, which sucks. But gotta have a cost somewhere for a card that's this good. So Generation Break 8. Counter Blast 1, Soul Blast 1, and bind the top 8 cards of your deck during the main phase to activate the skill. And then after the original battle phase of this turn, this card gives you an additional main phase and additional battle phase. And then at the end of, at the beginning of the second main phase, you get to stand this unit and it gets -1 drive. So you get to check 3, then check 2, and even in between that, you get another main phase so that you can play units that you even checked off of your drive checks in the first check. So very, very good. Then we run 2 Chrono Dragon Gear Groovy. Gear Groovy is basically our stride that is able to take the ability of other strides that we have, as long as we have Chronojet in our name. And usually the 2 strides that we target with this, since they have to be Gear Dragons, are Zodiac our Zodiac Time Beast Stride, Meta Pulsar Panglong Dragon, and Chrono Dragon Next Stage. So you can't even use it with Avenir Phoenix because Avenir Phoenix is a Gear Beast and this requires a Gear Dragon, so do be wary of that. The Generation Break 2 skill is basically what I just stated. You flip a Chrono Dragon Gear Groovy up from your G zone, and then if you have a heart with Chronojet in its name, choose an auto ability of 2 face-up Gear Dragons in your G zone, and this unit gets their abilities until the end of the turn. Its Generation Break 3 ability is Soul Blast 1, and choose a face-down card from your G-Zone turn to face-up, and this unit gets plus 5,000 power until the end of the turn. So, very, very solid card. Just be aware that you do have to be Generation Break 3 for the second part of the ability, and Generation Break 2 for the first part. Moving on to 2 Chrono Dragon Next Stage. Next Stage is basically our restander of the deck, but it doesn't really restand, it just gets you a second attack with your Chronojet that's underneath it, adds its heart. So at the end of the battle that this unit attacked a Vanguard, you can Counter Blast 1 and choose a Next Stage from your G-Zone, turn it face up. If you do, then then you get to put this card into your G-Zone face up, and then choose one of your Vanguards and stand it. So basically that would equal you moving this card back to the G-Zone and restanding Chronojet Dragon G. So it's basically like a restander in that way. Very, very good card. You pretty much never go into this directly because you want to be able to use it with Gear Groovy skill. So you kind of go into a Huang Long at some time, and then you use the Generation Break 3 skill to flip over 1 Next Stage, and then use the Generation Break 2 to copy Next Stage and Huang Long, and then use the skill during the battle phase. Huang Long, like I've been talking about so much in this deck so far, is at the end of the battle that this unit attacks a Vanguard, you can Counter Blast 1 and choose a face-up Grade 1 or greater card from your drop zone or from your bind zone and put it into your hand or call into the rearguard circle. So since I was talking about like having almost no ways to recover cards from the bind zone, like this is one of them, and it's a really good option. So you should pretty much take up the chance to use it whenever you can, in my opinion. Then we have, for our G-Guardians, we have 5. We have 1 hetero-round dragon. You are allowed to run more than 1 hetero-round dragon in the English format. If you're running the Japanese format, it is a card that is limited to 1. But you can run more of this if you'd like. It's just up to personal preference. I ran 1 to kind of fit with Japan and America on this specific build so that people don't feel left out due to their meta. So you're able to run more of these and like less Erlus or something if you want, or just keep 1. So its skill is when this unit is placed on the guard circle, if you have a Vanguard with Chronojet in its name, you can Soul Blast 1 and choose one of your opponent's rear guards. Your opponent will choose that unit and put it back to their deck, and then shuffle their deck, and then top deck the top card of their deck to the field. So what that means is that if your opponent has like a really big rear guard that's going to swing at you and possibly in the game, you could G-Guard with this, send that card back before it ever attacks, and then make them top deck a card and call it, and they might not even be able to attack with that new unit because they might put a trigger on the field. And it's like a forced call, so they do have to call the top card of their deck. They can't like look at it and choose not to call. So if you get a trigger off of them for it, it's really, really good because making them lose triggers from their deck, but you're also putting a normal unit back to their deck, and then you're also lowering their attack force at the same time. So it does 3 things simultaneously. That's really good. We run 2 retroactive time made in Urlu. So what Urlu does is when it's placed on the guard circle, you can choose 1 normal unit and 1 trigger unit from your drop zone, put it on the bottom of your deck, and if you put 2 cards back to the deck, then this unit gets plus 5,000 shield. So pretty generic 31k block if you're on 11k Vanguard, which you should always be. Then we have 1 highbrow steam Rapana. Rapana allows you to choose any grade 1 or greater rearguard that you have and return it to the deck, and then you can search your deck for 1 grade 0 card, call it to rearguard, and if you call a card, this card gets plus 10,000. So our grade 0 that you usually want to call off Rapana is usually Urwater, followed by Heart Thump Worker if Urwater is not in your deck somehow. Then we have 1 faraway time made in Urlu. This is our new G Guardian, the flip one. It basically just allows us to guard really big attacks when we don't have a PG in our hand, because its skill is counter boss 1, choose a G Guardian and flip it face up, and then this unit gets plus 5,000 shield for every face up card in the G zone. So assuming that we're a couple strides in, this is pretty much like a no pass or a 3 to pass on most strides. Moving on to the matches, we're going to open back up our area here. And then we're going to load our game. Chronojet 1. So it seems like first game we're playing against Glindios, which is kind of unfortunate because it's like one of those matchups where, in my opinion, you just either wait back for a long time and you try to stall out the game until you win, or option number 2, you kind of rush them really hard. I chose to rush really hard because this is we're playtesting when the new Link Trigger support comes out, so they have access to the new Glindios stuff. So I decided to rush them really hard so that we wouldn't get messed up anyways, because literally they have that new stride that will allow them to self-damage themselves, so there's no point to me in not giving them damage. So I decided to rush super hard, so he's at 5 before he even rides the grade 3. He plays a reverse unit and uses Glindios skill to make me lock it. Then he attacks my Vanguard. I guard for a 2 to pass. He checks a critical and a stand trigger, putting all the effects on his rear guard, and then he attacks my rear guard. So I don't have a grade 3, so I choose to G assist just because I think it'll be worth it just to get a grade 3. But we actually don't end up getting a grade 3 anyways, so we just attack into his Vanguard for 14, he guards, and we top deck the Chronojet Dragon. So pretty good scenario on our half. Our opponent just chooses to play another reverse unit, make us lock, and then he gains the 15k or whatever. So he attacks with Vanguard, then attacks with the rear guard. I guard his rear guard. Then he attacks with Vanguard, checks a critical and a regular card. So he seems to be running like a good amount of criticals in this deck, along with stands. So I'm wondering if I was wondering if he was going for the Glindios beatdown version of the deck. So I decided to go into Avenir Phoenix and call 2 cards out by the time loop skill of Chronojet G and Chronodren together. So I call it a Transit Dragon. I attack him for 18, and the Transit Dragon goes to my soul. Avenir Phoenix will basically get me 2 cards. And I kind of had like a crappy pick, so I called 2 cards, and one of them being a PG, which kind of sucks, but at this point I just needed to get extra attacks on him so that he wouldn't world end me. So I attacked him for 26 and he PG'd, so I checked my 3 cards and none of them are triggers. So I attack for 13, and then I shove into the soul and draw. And then he locks my rear guard back with his stand trigger. He strides into the Omega Loop stride, So he's able to play Ruin Magician and get 2 cards back from his drop zone, and then he's able to use Omega Loop Glindios' skill to make me call the top 3 cards as locked to the field, and they are Omega locked. So basically, where we are right now, he would auto win during his next main phase with Glindios, but obviously I'm not going to let that happen because I did rush him for a reason. So he only checks 1 PG, so his hand is super vulnerable to me right now, and we do have a restand in this deck. So I do stride into just Gear Groovy, and then I use Gear Groovy's skill to Soul Blast 1 and flip out Chronojet, and then I use the skill to take only next stage. I did that so that the Chronojet G swinging at him would be bigger. That's coming out after this, so we use next stage skill to discard 3, then we attack him for 31. We check a heal trigger, and we check a regular card, and he does not check a 6 damage heal, thank goodness for us. So we're able to win that match off of just rushing him really hard. Moving on to our next match, where we are opening area here. So Chronojet 2. This game seems like we're playing against Kagero. Kind of an interesting matchup, and he's running some interesting cards, to be honest. Like, when he played some cards, I was like, what? Like, this was the first card that he played, and I was like, what? He runs Gojo, so I haven't seen this card being run in a long time. So he used the skill to rest it and discard 1, draw 1. And I attacked him for 12, and he takes it. Then he draws and rides to grade 2. He also calls a 7k, grade 1, add Niki, so that was kind of new. I expected him to play his grade 2s that he would have, just looking at his hand myself. So I decided to attack 9k into his Vanguard and then 14k into his Vanguard, because I also want to get a lot of damage on him as soon as possible, because I feel like the later the game goes, the more it favors Kagero in this specific matchup, in this set. Maybe G-BT12, it favors ZTV more as the game goes on, but G-BT11, this build was kind of still developing, so it's definitely weaker, I think, in my opinion, for the ZTV player in G-BT11. So we attack him with 20k using the skill. So we make it go away, we make Transit Dragon draw us a card, and then we make Avenir Phoenix call 2 cards for us. And then we check 3 cards, 1 happens to be a heal, so we do take that heal gladly. We attack for 14, he guards it, and then we get a card off of our Cruising Dragon, and then he denial Griffins our Cruising Dragon, so we're fine with that, because, you know, we got it for free, we got our card off of it, like, the job was done, basically. So he uses the blade skill or the blaze skill of his starter, but I was telling him that that's at the beginning of an attack. So he uses the grade 1 skill to shove into the soul on flip 2, and then he plays 2 cards. And then he uses the skill to shove into the soul, uses blaze. And then I no guarded. He checks 1, 2, 3 as a critical. I take 2 damage. And then he restands, and I don't notice this, but he came to restand because he's not GB3, so I should have called him on that, but I wasn't really paying attention because I was just thinking about my next turn play, I think. Also, I've never been in a situation where someone tried to Ziegenberg me and they didn't actually meet the requirement, so I had him just Soul Blast 1 and flip a Ziegenberg because I noticed at the end of the turn. So I had him Soul Blast 1 and flip a Ziegenberg just as if he had used the skill, just so that he would be able to use it, and that seemed like the quickest way to fix the game state. So we do call 2 cards. We attack the Cruising Dragon, get a crit trigger, And then Transit Dragon goes to the Soul, we draw, and then we use our second Avenir Phoenix to call some more cards to the board. Then he PGs our attack with a Kanzen guard, perfect guard. Then we check a critical, we put it all to our rear guard, and then we attack for 20, and then we attack for 30. He guards us with 2 more cards. Then he strides on his turn, uses Blade Master skill to kill our grade 2. Then he uses Ziegenberg to kill our back row. He uses Gojo to drop 1, draw 1, and his hand is looking pretty scarce at this point. So he attacked and used his grade 2 skill to blow my rear guard. Then we PG, he checks a critical and goes crit to the Vanguard, power to the rear, and then he has to discard 1 card to restand. And then I was thinking about no guarding here, but I just decided to use the G guard instead, because if he checks a critical, it wouldn't be worth it for me to die like that. So I no pass him, he checks a draw trigger, he gives power to his rear guard and draws. Then we damage tech a Water, which is actually pretty unfortunate for us, but it is what it is. We do stride come our turn, and we go into our Generation Break 8. We use Beyond Order Dragon to time leap ourselves into a Manish from our deck, and then we use the GB8 skill to kind of Blast 1, Soul Blast 1, bind the top 8 cards of the deck. And then we play Kulu Racina, use the skill to put a heal back. And then I asked him if he was returning 1, and this is what I was talking about, where so he thought that it meant return 1 from the field, but it's actually from drop zone, so he decides to return a heal. And then because he did, we get to countercharge 1, which is good for us later. So we attack him for 11, then we attack him for 31 with our crit trigger skill. We get a heal. Probably should have healed out Water, but I wasn't thinking about it at the moment, to be honest. And so I attack him for 21. He needs more to guard than that. And then we do the Generation Break 8 skill to call 2 more. So then I call a Kulu skill, and I use the skill again to put a card to the bottom, which would be a crit trigger. And I put the card to the bottom because we were low cards in deck at that point, and putting back any trigger is pretty much fatal to him. So he decides to put back a PG, and I unflip because of that. Then I attack him for 11, and he guards it with a regular heal, G guard. And then I attack him for 26, he no guards, and I check a critical, the one that I literally just put back. So, yeah, it's just very, very good plays on my part, I feel like, except for not noticing that the Ziegenberg wasn't GV3, but we kind of ramified that, so it's not like it was an unfair match or anything. But yeah, that's why I value Kulu Racina so much as a card. Like, I just feel like it's so good. Moving into Chronojet Game 3. We're playing against Zeal, it looks like, or some form of Zeal. So our opponent rides the ride chain, but doesn't get any cards off of it, which is good for us. We attack, he guards because we're not attacking him for a guard stage. And then we check a draw trigger on his Vanguard attack. Then we decide to rush him pretty hard, play our grade 1 to get us a Chronojet and discard. Then we attack into his rear guard, so that we won't have to worry about that card. But he decides to guard to keep it around. He does check a critical, we check a heal in response, so pretty good for us. We go into Avenir Phoenix, and we time leap Dran into Transit Dragon and get a Chronojet Dragon G. And then we play a Rishima from our hand, and then he guards for 10. Then he guards, he guards with another 10. Then we use Avenir Phoenix skill to call 2 cards. Yeah. So I told him what my cards were because I was supposed to reveal it to him, and I didn't really know that. So then we check a heal, good for us. and he heals. And then I was thinking if I wanted to use Rishima skill, so I decided to use it just to put one in the back row, just so that I can draw a card later. And it's basically like a drop one, draw one type thing. So I draw into Kulu Racino, which makes me pretty happy, honestly. He decides to Legion back some cards so that he can perform Legion. And then he attacks me for 15, then attacks me for 21. I no guard. He checks no triggers. Then I stand and draw. Go into Avenir Phoenix again. And I just play 2 cards. So I attack with Manish for 24. He checks another heal. And he does minus 4k to our card because of his skill, of his Legion. So we attack Vanguard anyways, so just that we can get the skill off and get our units. And then we use Avenir Phoenix skill, reveal, and then we call 2, and then we give plus power, and unflip. I also forgot the yeah, so he discarded one because the cruising would have hit because of the skill of our GB. So I do crit him. He takes 2 damage. And then I attack his rear guard and I can't hit his Vanguard. So then he goes into Guilt Digger so that I can gain plus 20,000 in a crit. Thankfully I have a PG in my hand, so that's not really a threat. He does check a stand trigger though, which is pretty good on his part, but then he checks 2 grade 3s, so it is what it is. Like, it's pretty much just a straight loss from that point of him checking that. So we go into next stage to seal the deal, so to speak, and then we time leap our grade 1 on the field into a Cruiser Dragon, and then we play a Kulu Racina using Kulu skill on our part to send back a crit to the deck. And then we asked him if he is returning or not, and he said 1 sec, so I assumed that he was reading the card. So he chooses not to return, so that he didn't fall for the bait, so I can't use cruising skill and next stage in the same turn. So we attack with next stage, we check a crit, a draw, and a PG. And then we use next stage skill to discard 3. And then we attack him for 26. He no guards, we check a stand trigger and a draw trigger. So yeah, that ends up being game, and that kind of just shows like how powerful this deck is. But this deck gets I would say a solid 8 out of 10 in my opinion. But yeah, that has been our FutureFight Vanguard series for the G-BT11 version of Zodiac Time East. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, leave me a like and a comment on the video down below letting me know what you thought. Make sure you check out all of our social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Patreon. For those of you as a part of Patreon, thank you so much for supporting the channel, and you guys are definitely getting what is promised to you. And yeah, so that has been the video. This has been Josh from Cardfight Empire, and I'll see you guys on the next video.